And I would like to remind everybody to please keep your phones off and stay seated during the duration of our speakers tonight. And let's welcome our first speaker, Laura.
Thank you. This is a different podium from today. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Laura. Let's see. Thank you, Mike, for asking me to speak tonight, and happy birthday. And that's his belly button birthday. And then congratulations to all the chip takers. I forgot to write your names down because I was nervous, but anyway, thanks to all of you. So let's see. My name is Laura. I'm definitely an alcoholic. Let's see. Okay, I grew up in upstate New York, Albany, capital. And so I lived there my whole life. I love New York. And let's see. So when I was young, like 13, say my parents divorced. Not so unusual. You know, they didn't get along, to say the least. I was an only child, which I don't recommend to anybody, but that's just me. My parents didn't get along, so I was like the referee kind of thing. And so anyway, yeah, I grew up in New York, and so my mother decided to remarry as soon as my parents divorced, literally. So that took me from, you probably don't know where I'm talking about, but from one place to another, and to the country. I had to move to the country, and I didn't want to move, and I refused to move until the day that I actually had to go to school. And so that's the first day I walked into Bethlehem Central, which was like 575 kids or whatever. It was a big school. I hated it. I was miserable. However, by the end of the day, I was riding in the back of the bus. I knew all the cool kids. I met everybody in the smoking area. Got high. I mean, it didn't take me long. I sort of found my comfort zone, the people that I was comfortable with. And there, I pretty much remained for the rest of the 4 years in high school. So let's see. As far as my family's concerned, my father was a problem drinker. My mother used to say, I think he was an alcoholic. He just refused to ever, get help. My mother was an enabler, wonderful person, but enabler. And I spent a lot of my childhood being dragged around the neighborhood looking for my father. Because, he would leave on Friday and say, I'm going to buy a pack of Luckies, and we wouldn't see him again until Monday or Tuesday. So, or we would get calls from his friends' wives, where is so-and-so, is he at your house? Or the cops would bring my father home because he hit like the biggest oak tree in Colony, and that was Christmas Eve, and he had like a neck brace on, and he wanted pity, from me, like he really was so injured, and so hurt. And that's sort of what I grew up with, a father who was really, really immature, to say the least. But he loved sports, and that's where we connected. I love sports. He was a huge Yankee fan, Cleveland Browns, not so much, but, Yankee fan, and I played softball. I played shortstop, and I loved softball. I loved it. I clean up. I'm sorry, I got to break, because I practiced every day. My father wouldn't let me go swimming. Couldn't do anything except, play softball, and that's the way he was. So, and he loved the Yankees. I love the Yankees. So, again, there were things. Luckily, we were able to connect on, or whatever. But so my parents divorced. Like I said, I moved to Del Mar, and so drinking pretty much took off. 9th grade, we used to drink. I mentioned this to Megan. Mad Dog 2020 was a fave, and that was. And I remember that. I really liked Mad Dog a lot, and and I would smoke pot, but I wasn't really. Pot always made me paranoid, but I smoked it anyway because everybody else did. So let's see, where am I? Okay, so anyway, so I graduated from high school, and I got married, and I had my son, and basically started working for the Public Service Commission in New York State. We regulated utilities. What Texas doesn't do, that's what we did. So that kind of thing shouldn't have happened. So I was a regulator, and I got my college degree through New York State. I graduated in 2013, my bachelor's in women's studies, women's and cultural studies, which is why I wouldn't admit powerlessness, but that will come later. So the thing is with me, I got a lot done. I functioned. I really functioned. And at least on the outside, my insides did not match my outsides, but I loved being a mom. I loved coaching soccer, and I just had a lot of distractions. Kids are a big distraction, and that's wonderful. That's probably the best thing I ever did in my life. But so let's see, had kids. I have 3 kids, and so they got older, and I divorced. Then my kids, I sent to Syracuse, so don't forget Syracuse Saturday. Go Syracuse, yeah. And so if anybody knows, they're in basketball. But anyway, so that, my kids, got through college and everything. And, I fought really hard to get them, into college. And, I worked really hard to make sure my kids had everything, that they needed. And, how to go to court, those things with the ex-husband. But anyway, got it done. But I think for me, without looking at all my notes, all this stuff sounds great. And I had a good life, I really did. But I could not stop drinking. I could stop when I was pregnant, but I could not put together continuous sobriety. I just couldn't do it. And it was always in the back of my mind, and all my friends, drank. Their kids were, all the kids played together, and we drank. And we had a lot of fun until we didn't, and I just, seriously, I could not stop. And, there were days, I could go 3 days, maybe occasionally a week, but I just couldn't get beyond that. And I took Antabuse once, and that was my way of, stopping drinking, And I got very sick because I drank on it anyway, of course. And they're not kidding when they warn you, don't drink if you're taking Antabuse. But that was my way of stopping, that was my recovery, that was my sobriety, it forced me to not be able to drink even though I did anyway. And I always looked at drinking, for me, my father drank, everybody drank in my family except my mom. She drank seltzer, that's another story. My mother's always, why don't you just drink seltzer? And it's like, if that were true, of course I wouldn't be standing here. And, she just didn't get it, and I just literally could not stop drinking. So, let's see, about 25 years ago, probably, I walked into my first AA meeting on a Friday, and there began my sort of, my journey through AA, and again, I just could not get step 1. Powerlessness, no. My life was unmanageable, but I'm not powerless, absolutely not. And I kept drinking. So eventually, I had this, my first sponsor was a man, big Yankee fan. He was great. And I had a couple other sponsors, but I was just in and out of the rooms all the time. And I tried to find other groups, too, that would, the workbooks that said, you can control your drinking by blah, blah, blah. And I tried everything. Spent a lot of money on therapy. But I always knew deep down that what I needed to do was stop drinking, be honest, get honest. And I just couldn't do it. And, I hit a lot of my, I ran marathons. I did all kinds of shit to just basically distractions, to take me out of myself. And I just I was always in conflict, always trying to find balance in my life, Oh, you run marathons, but, how do you do that when you drank, a couple bottles of wine the night before and you were smoking? And but I always wanted to prove people wrong, I can do everything. I can, without stopping, drinking. But anyway, and I will always say that sports saved my life. Always, between, playing and running, and it just, because I couldn't stop drinking and I didn't believe in AA, and sports really kept me on track, athletics. So let's see, when I got married a second time, I moved, and I had these, we lived on a cul-de-sac, and everybody loved to party, and it was a great neighborhood. And of course, I fit right in. And so just some of my, like, some of the things that happened to me when I was drinking, like, I went to a party across the street, and my neighbor, Chris, was a lot of fun, big guy, and he had big friends, and they were all in college together, and they were obnoxious, and I kept calling his friend, like, a fat ass, and we got in a big fight, and he kicked me out of his house. And I, I had to go and apologize the next day and pick up my crock pot, and it was super embarrassing, but I was used to that, because I was used to having to do that, making an ass of myself. And a few times, neighbors, I'm trying to think. So there were, let's see, 3 ambulance trips that I can think of. There might be 4, but I think there were 3. And the first one was it the first? Well, anyway, a neighbor again next door. I went to a book club. I read the book, but unfortunately I'd been drinking before I went there. So I got there and I passed out on the couch. And they called the ambulance because they didn't know what was wrong with me. They had no idea that I'd been drinking. So, off I went. That was, of course, very embarrassing. I had to apologize the next day and again. And then another ambulance trip, I was eating at an Italian restaurant with a friend of mine. He did not know I was drinking, and I passed out at the table. So they called the ambulance again, and so that was 2. And then probably the worst one, I went on a work trip. This was at the end of my career. And I don't mean end, I retired. I was not fired, I retired. But this put my career in serious jeopardy. I went up to St. Lawrence, Gas and Electric, and we were all there, and we were bowling, we were having a great time. I was the only girls, all these guys, and we had a great time. Not that that matters, but so once we finished, everybody went back to the room. Me, I decided I was going to go to the bar down the street, so that's what I did. And I walked down, and well, I passed out at the bar, and they called an ambulance, of course, which took me to the hospital, and then they had to call my coworkers who had to come and pick me up in the middle of the night, and they were not happy, and that's okay. I could have probably gotten away with that, but what I decided to do the next day on the way back in the van, the work van, I decided I was going to go in and buy a Monster drink, but I knew I was really buying a drink, one of those drinks that had booze in it. I forget what they were called, White Clam, whatever I bought. And I spilled it in the back of the van, so you could smell alcohol in the back of the van. I was smoking while I was pumping gas, and they're freaking out, like, you can't do that. Yes, I can, So the thing is, when I got back to my house, they had called my boss. So I had to go into work Monday, and I had to deal with that. And that was another sort of, I'm sorry, I didn't like my boss, but really stupid on my part. Really, really stupid, because I only had like 5 years left before I could retire. So I had to get an attorney. Luckily, I kept my job, but it was a lot of work and it was expensive. And another major expense I had was a DUI 10 years ago. I'm lucky I just had one. And, I left my house. My kids are sitting on the couch. I'm like, bye, They're like, okay, bye. And I get in the car and I total the car like right down the street, and for whatever reason, the cops let me leave with my neighbor. I don't know why. I just remember my neighbor brought me home. My kids were like, and it was just like, oh, I was so ashamed and I had a concussion, and it was terrible. And my kids were just really disgusted, and I don't think they know what to do, right? What do you do with a mom who, was taking care of you, and, they ended up taking care of me, So that was that. Anyway, that didn't do it, though, of course. That's not my bottom. But my bottom, when I came down here, my parents and my daughter, I was living with my parents, and I was just a mess. I was a mess. I was a fucking mess. I wanted to die. I was in psychosis. I was a mess. And I didn't think that could happen, like, oh, from drinking, psychosis, nah, that's not real, I can't identify with that. Well, it's real. It happened to me. I was severely depressed, and I lost everything, as far as, like, I had my cat put to sleep. She was 19. My kids were gone. They were, living on their own. I was divorced. I was by myself. I was retired, so I had no job. So I lived with my mom for a while, and they wanted me to leave by December, and I just couldn't function. So they my daughter and my mom sent me here to Decision Point. And they were worried I wouldn't be able to make it down here, but I did. I got on the plane. I made it here. Decision Point saved my life. I mean, I'll always say that. It saved my ass. And I will always, I just can't say enough about Decision Point. I loved it somewhat, but I learned a lot. I really did. And they're always there for me now. And then I went and I got a sponsor who's still my sponsor today for 15 months. And so then I decided, my big decision was, do I go to sober living or do I go home? And I knew if I went home, I'd know where to live. So I thought, I guess I'll go into sober living. And I didn't want to. I had no car. I didn't have anything, just me. And so I did go, and I was there for a year. And it was a wonderful experience. And I'm older, obviously. Most of my roommates were, 20s, 30s, but a couple were not. One who I'm now roommates with. Well, that's okay. Anyway, so I did go to sober living, and I rode my bike everywhere. I didn't have a car. I got a job. My job at Watson Lake through the city of Prescott, which I'm going to start again in a couple weeks. I got that job last year, and for me, it was like the best job you could ever ask for. It's just the kiosk girl, the lake ambassador, whatever you want to call me. And I just ran around a lot. I love being outside. I love hiking. It was just a perfect job, and that was a gift, a real gift. And again, I'm starting again in 2 weeks, and I just moved out of sober living 2 weeks ago, and I moved in with my roommate at TLC, Megan, and we're now, we share an apartment together. And it's just wonderful, it's like, I feel like, like my kids lived in dorms. I never did. That's sort of how I feel. And we have each other to, bounce shit off of, like I'm feeling like this, and, it's awesome. And all my friends are sober today. I don't think a single friend that is not sober that I know of. And, I have great connections. I reach out to people. I've gone through the steps. I think I did get past 1, obviously, and I'm on 8. But I have really, I find Prescott to be quirky. I think it's the funniest place. When I first came here, I just thought, I didn't get it. But I love it. I will never leave Prescott, except, maybe a trip back home here and there. But I'll never leave here. The recovery's fabulous. I don't feel judged here. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I've been here like a year and something, and I've never felt closer to people than I do here, seriously. And I've met a good friend of mine that's in recovery, male friend, and all my female friends, and I guess that's all I have. That's it. So it's just good to be here.
I think Laura might have grabbed my cheat sheet for the next speaker. Sorry about that. Brady's our next speaker tonight.
Hello, my name is Brady, and I am an alcoholic. I had to practice that a couple of times. And I got to say hi to Mike Bennett. He always likes his name mentioned anytime you're up there speaking. You got to say Mike Bennett. Birthday, Mike Bennett. Be like Mike. Well, I don't know, 15 minutes. I didn't do too much. I was born in 1954. And from 1954 to 1967, things were pretty mellow. Mom and Dad were pretty mellow. Took me a couple of years to figure out I was an oops, which was always fun. So my half-sister raised me most of the time. She'd get a phone call from Mom and Dad. Hey, we're in Salt Lake City. We found the worm in the bottom of the bottle, and we'll be home in a couple days. So that's when the alcohol started. Mom and Dad started drinking. So from 67 to 73, I experienced my father in the alcoholic world. I had the greatest parents in the world. Loved my dad dearly, but he drank a lot. would get in his truck to go someplace, and he'd reach under the seat and pull out a bottle of vodka and say, "Hey, you want to pull?" And, "Oh, of course I do. Sure, let's go drive and see if we can't wreck the car." So that went on for quite a while, and 1973 I graduated. A buddy of mine, I always ran around with the class that was a couple of years ahead of me, and right out of high school, a buddy of mine and I bought a condominium, and that was game on. That was fun. But always had a job. I always put my job first before anything. Worked in the disco days, played at the disco days, was the disco guy, had all the fancy clothes and stuff. And always had a pocket full of Quaaludes. And you find out what you can do with Quaaludes, because you can get just about anything you want as long as you got Quaaludes. Of course, I pissed off a few husbands, but that's okay. But we had that condo for quite a while, and then I met a little lady, and we got married. And it was a great marriage, but then we were both working, and on the weekends or at night, we were working as DJs in different bars. So we had a beautiful little girl. All that was planned. Everything was great. And after being in the bars and discos, and you get trapped into that type of a culture, and I was divorced when my daughter was 8 months old, and I was drinking. So I worked a 3-day week job, so I had 4 days off. That's not good if you're a drinker. I'd even go to the labor temp so I could get some extra cash so I could get drunk. But when it was time for me to pick up my daughter, I had my apartment stocked, had everything in there, and I was sober 4 days. Had a great time. Cool. What do you do? So after that, I met a lady I was working with, and through a few parties we had at work and stuff like that, we hooked up, and come to find out she was a screaming alcoholic. And we had both taken martial arts, and she was not afraid to use that. And there were several times that we had to fight our way out of a bar. And we'd go to North Denver, of course, and pick on all those guys. And I remember one night we were up there in North Denver, and some guy walked by her and said something, and she turned around and looked at him and hit the ground. And I was like, shit. Her brother was with me. He goes, "What are we going to do?" I said, "We're going to fight our way out of here. That's what's going to happen." We're driving down the road. These guys are chasing us. We pulled over. I ran over to the car, reached through the car door, and it was just like a scene out of a movie. I grabbed this guy's fluffy jacket, and I yanked on him, and he stood up, and I went, "Uh-oh." And there was a cop right behind me. Saved my ass. This guy was going to kill me. We were all drinking and stuff. We kind of parted ways, and home we went. But the 3-2 bars at that time were a hoot. And that went on for quite a while until I turned 21. And then the 21 scene came in. That's when more Quaaludes, more cocaine, just crazy stuff. But I always worked. So a little girl that was a fighter, me being a dumbass, I decided to ask her to marry me. We got married. It was great for 7 months. We were at a bar drinking, and I was with some friends of mine, and we were having a grand old time, and everybody's dancing and stuff, and all of a sudden she came over, and she was screaming and yelling at me and calling me names. And my buddy tapped me and goes, "How much longer are you going to put up with that?" See ya. Stuck my thumb out and hitchhiked home. We're on the way home. This Mustang goes by us at 100 miles an hour. And he goes, "Man, did you see those people?" And I said, "Yeah, that's soon to be my ex-wife." Got home, the fight ensued, called the cops. They had me in handcuffs. She broke 3 of my ribs, gave me a side kick. The cop said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "You either get me out of these cuffs so I can defend myself, or get me out of here." Out the door I went, got my truck, called a friend of mine, lady friend of mine, went to her house, and that was on a Friday. I got up that morning, called my attorney, and I was divorced on Monday. That's number 2. Things were going pretty good. Still had a job, working full time, had a pocket full of money, and could drink. My dad and I could go out and drink. We'd go out and raise hell. We'd get arrested. He'd go to the brink. Cops would take me home, knock on the door. Mrs. Bottoms, is this your son? Nope. Mom, wait a minute. Second word out of her mouth, where's my Cadillac? She was more worried about that car than anything that was going on with Dad and I. So this went on a few times. Got thrown in jail, bar fights, bouncers at bars. I was always the little guy. They put me at the back door and always got in a fight. So time went on, and I'd been out drinking, raising hell, and I got a call from my mom. My mom and dad had been married for, I don't know, forever. And she was crying. She said, Dad, I can't take it anymore. I want a divorce. I just can't stand it. He's a mess. So I got my car. I'm drunk. I show up at the house. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I go in the house. I'm screaming and yelling at my dad. He is just flat shit-faced. So I go in his closet. I grab all his clothes. I take them outside. I threw them in the front yard. And I said, out. We're not going to sit here and watch you die. I said, Mom's telling me she wants a divorce. Get out of here. I went home. I got a phone call at about 12:30. My mom said, you need to get over here. I thought, well, Dad killed himself. She goes, no, he wants me to take him to detox. I said, okay, I'll meet you over there. So we get to detox, and she's freaking out. They can only hold him for 24 hours because it's on his own. And he said, you got to sign these papers. If he hurts himself, you know, if he can endanger somebody else, then we can keep him. And Mom wasn't going to sign them. I finally talked her into it. She signed them. I never saw my dad again for at least 2 months. I called my mom every day. How's Dad doing? He's doing good. How's Dad doing? He went through the program, which I never knew what that program was. And it was about a month after he had sobered up, that after me coming home from work, which was every night, a 6-pack of beer, half a pint of Jack Daniels, that was my night. And I woke up one morning and I was like, I'm done. Dad can do it, I can do it. I still didn't see him. I showed up about a month later and walked up to the door, and he come out and he greeted me out in the front yard, and he just looked at me and he goes, you haven't had anything to drink, have you? I said, nope. He said, good, welcome to the club. He was my sponsor. I didn't know the 12 steps. I didn't know anything. But every year I celebrated, which was May 1st, he would give me a coin. I have 12 of those because the 12th coin, he passed away. I was still strong. I had a great wife at the time. We moved to California. I was still strong. I was so focused on the corporate world, work was number one. All the rest of it was number two. I did that for 20 years, high stress job. Decided to move out here. She found a little house. I go, where in the hell's Prescott? What do you want to move out there for? She goes, you're stressed. So we sold our house that we bought for $130,000 on the beach in California and took $750,000 for it and never looked back. Moved out here and bought a house. I was still sober for about 2 years. And then I'd be hanging around with new friends. All those people were gone. Nobody knew me here. Hey, taste this wine. This is pretty good wine. Sure, I'll take a taste of it. Well, taste turned into another one, turned into another one, turned into another one. And about 11 years ago, we sat on the couch. My wife looked at me and she goes, you're drinking, aren't you? I said, well, of course I am. I said, you're feeding it to me. She goes, what do you want to do? I said, I want a divorce. Number 3. Put a pattern together. Alcohol, jail, alcohol, wife, alcohol, kids, no alcohol, 26 years of marriage, alcohol, marriage gone. So kind of behind that is everything I could tell you happened to me in my life. Every jail term, got arrested for manslaughter one time, attempted manslaughter. I threatened the guy, told him I'd kill him if he didn't drop the charges. I'm here, I don't have a felony. So I got divorced. And I was by myself, big house, free range, still had a job. But I started drinking pretty heavy. And I started backing off to that after about 9 years of that. And I thought, man, this is tough. So I stopped. And I was good for about 2 or 3 years. And met a beautiful lady. We're married, number 4. There's not going to be a number 5. That's where I'm at today. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be alive. She called me out on it. And I knew divorce was coming. And I wasn't going to let that happen. And so after a bunch of heated arguments and stuff, October 18th, I walked through that door. And I met all you people here. If I'd have done that and known what the program was when my dad was doing it, I would be here with 35 years of sobriety. But I get to start over. But I know how bad it is when you try it again. And when you get into it, you'll find out you are an alcoholic. Some of us aren't alcoholics in this room. We just had forced into here. But when you go back out there and you get trapped into that drinking, and all of a sudden you get started again, and you know you can't stop, you got a problem. And this is the best thing that ever happened to me. And did I say Mike Bennett's name? Don't forget about Mike Bennett. I know I've only got a couple minutes, but I wrote something down that really caught me off guard. I just want to say it real quick, and this, you guys can. I don't care how dark it looks for you. I don't care what they said about you. I don't care what the verdict is. I don't care what the haters say. It ain't over. No matter what happens to you, it ain't over. Ain't no such thing as over. Do you mean that you can actually mess up your life completely up? You can jack it all the way up. And you can turn around and get it right back. Do you know you can be divorced multiple times and still be okay? Do you understand that you cannot have a degree and still be just fine? Now, whatever you've been through, whatever that is, guess what? You're still here. You have a great life in front of you. But your great life is in front of you. It's not behind you. Pull yourself together and quit tripping. Because you're in the process. God is processing you. He ain't through with you. If he was through with you, you would not wake up in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Brady. And let's welcome our third speaker for the evening, Ozzy.
Hey guys, I'm Ozzy. I'm an alcoholic. Oh man, grateful to be here tonight. You know, I always say yes for any commitment, and that's, you know, one of the reasons why I'm still around. But I want to say congratulations for getting 2 years, 6 months back there. Congrats, you guys. Those are milestones. You know, so I'll just start it simple. I was, both my parents were alcoholics, addicts. I believe I inherited this disease called alcoholism as a child. I just kind of keep it simple, you know. I guess you could say I already had a disconnection from a power greater than myself at such a young age. I couldn't rely on any parental figure or guidance at a young age, and thought I had to do it on my own. That's how I basically lived as a kid. So I'm going to kind of skip forward, kind of keep out what it was like, because I think we all know what it was like during all those years, the misery, the loneliness, the sadness, the despair, and no hope. I was first introduced to alcohol at the age of 11. I was getting sexually abused by another man. So, you know, in that moment, alcohol did that one thing for me. You know, it made me feel okay, it made me accept all the pain. I had no cares. And I kind of just went on for the rest of my life, you know, lack of trust for other human beings. a little bit of everything. I had no hope for this world. I was angry at anything and everybody. I had every excuse in the book to drink alcohol. And, tonight what I really want to talk about for me was steps 1, 2, and 3, about these spiritual principles they have. Because on the third paragraph states in the 12 and 12 that AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life can expel the obsession to drink and to make the sufferer happily and usefully whole. And that's where my life has become today. For me, it all has to do about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those are the three components that still allow me to stay here today and practice in becoming a better person. I was very closed-minded. I wasn't willing to do anything, wasn't willing to try it anybody else's way, didn't even want to be honest to myself. But, upon coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, I got the one thing that, everybody talks about. This disease kicked my ass. That's what it did. I was homeless every time. That's where I got to. And just for some reason, this last time, I became homeless and I didn't have a plan for once. I had nothing. I always had a plan every single time. I'm going to sleep here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to hustle that. And I just had officially had nothing left in my arsenal except for I'm homeless. That's it. I didn't care where I slept. I didn't care. I had no thought. I just felt like the world had just ended. And, so I came in. I went to a sober living out in Prescott Valley called NRG. And, that was a life-changing experience for me. It was tough, man. I lived in a lot of fear. That was my biggest thing. I was scared to talk about things that were eating me up inside. I didn't want to make new friends. I didn't want to let other men in my life. I didn't want to let anybody in my life. One of the biggest experiences I really ever had was about love, because I used to push it away. Anything that anybody did out of kindness or love, I never saw it like that. I just saw it as you doing me a favor. That's how selfish and self-centered I was. I couldn't look at any of that, about the care and the kindness. So, but the thing is that for me, was step 1, honesty, I knew I was powerless, because this disease is just one voice in my mind that continues to tell me to go back out, and I have no choice against it because I don't have a solution. The unmanageability took a long time to get there. I always wanted to do it one more time. I thought I could, I thought I could get my own place, be a father, achieve all these great things, but I couldn't because this disease of alcoholism only wanted to destroy everything in my life. And, so I started just admitting to myself, that I couldn't do it anymore and that I needed help from people because I had no idea. I didn't understand anything about this disease. I needed a little bit of guidance because I knew officially that I could not do it. So I just continued on with that. And, also open-mindedness. Man, I was such a closed-minded person, For me, open-mindedness means that I'm coming in here and I'm willing to unlearn everything that I've learned in my life. That's a tough order, let me tell you. But it is possible to go through with it. I believe that today. I was willing to take people's suggestions, to listen to when I've still wanted to run my own life, do things my way. I was still willing, or I was open-minded enough to keep coming back, to keep listening, just to keep my mouth shut. Because that was my biggest thing. I always have to have the last word. I'm a smart ass. Just it's my way of playing God today. And, and then that's the trippy part. It's like, how do we come to believe in a power greater than ourselves? I always like that. We were talking about that in a meeting a couple days ago. It's like, how do I come to believe? I believe it's just continuing to show up and just not taking that drink every single day. Doing the things you don't want to do, getting in, hitting your knees, even if you don't know what you're praying to. Just saying help. That was the biggest thing for me. But the crazy thing, it's like, I came to believe because I started doing things I normally wouldn't do. Started talking about things I wouldn't normally talk about. I started building trust with a sponsor who I had no idea about. I just knew that I could relate to them. That was the only thing that really helped me at that time. And for me, over those times, I've started to believe a lot more. I have 14 months. I told Mike Bennett I have 15, no fronts, almost there, but yeah, man, it's like I had that point when I hit that year of just like, in that moment, I had finally realized that there was always a power just waiting for me to give up and surrender to it. I just didn't know it. It watched me run my life. But it still cared from the sidelines, And I believe that today. That's how I came to believe, because I started to see me righting my wrongs, cleaning house, trusting people, and helping others, that I became to believe. And then let's see. Step 3, made a decision. That's where my willingness comes in. When I wake up every morning, all I hear in my mind is go yap, 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 yap. That's it. Tells me all types of crazy shit. Talking about women, future tripping, you name it, any insane thought. So in that moment, I get to make up my mind. Do I want to be controlled by this disease or not? And I hit my knees. I do my readings. I ask my God of my understanding. And for me, my God of my understanding is all the characteristics that I can be. That other voice that wants to help me. Being kind, loving, forgiving, tolerant, mindful, thoughtful, self-aware. These are all the things I understand as my higher power today. Because when it's Ozzy's will, I want to control you. I want to manage your actions and behaviors. I want to be an upright asshole. That's it. And I don't want to live like that today. I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect. I just had this experience, not bringing God in my workplace, going there, being rude to people, causing harm. It's what I do as an alcoholic, but I can practice and learn not to do that anymore. And I did that for a couple months, and it felt miserable because I felt guilty for the things that I was doing. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take some action. I'm going to be willing to take some action and put in some work and take a look at myself just a little bit more to see why I do these things. And Lord and behold, when I take action, my higher power does really help as I understand him. I can actually go to work and be a worker among workers, a friend among friends, and not be controlling. And that's a blessing today. I'm really grateful for that. And for me, it's weird, man, because like from that hopeless state of mind, it's like I never believed anybody could ever be sober. Never thought in a million years. I always thought if you wanted to drink, go for it. Cool for you, I was in such a state of denial. I had convinced myself that I was a normal person. I truly thought I was. Just living the life of the party and so forth. But, today, I couldn't even tell you what my life looks like. I get to be a father to a kid who I love with my heart and soul. I didn't have a dad. My dad killed himself when I was 3 years old to this disease. And let me tell you, the gift to be a father, shit almost makes me want to cry inside. That brings me so much happiness in my heart and soul today. But it's also the people that care and love for me. Because I never saw it once like that. Never, ever in my entire life. I hated everybody. Hated everything. But I was too big of a pussy to kill myself. I'd rather shoot people. That's what I wanted to do. I was a very homicidal kind of guy. But I get to call people. I get to expose this disease. These are the things today that are my solution. I get to come here. I get to speak and tell you guys that there is a way out of your suffering, to feel that void in your hole, whatever it is, because we all can relate. That's what this program has given us, is depth and weight. And that's something I'm truly grateful for today. So I'll make it short and simple. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Let's give one more round of applause for all our speakers tonight.